here we got questions. Now this is from a computer deal, and it's printed off for me. So like I'm remote right now, and I can't really get back to all of them, but I want to answer some of these. And questions are fun. Questions are fun. Give me your questions. Whenever I get to them, I'll get to them. So we're going to get to these first round right now. A lot of these were pitched out back when the show was still running. At this point, the show has ran. I have been crowned the 100-day king. I did the 100-day challenge, Alone Season 7. And these are some questions that came in. Here we go. Steve Southard. Hi, Steve. What kind of knife did you have with you during the Alone Show contest? That is Steve's question. I'm going with a physical description of that knife at this point. It was straight backed. I like a straight top on the top of my knife. Even ground from the top to the edge, not hollow ground, is what I prefer, although I'll use any kind of knife you stick in my hand. It had just under a 6-inch blade, and I didn't like the way that knife sharpened particularly, and I ground it to an edge I liked, and at the same time, and I do this with a lot of my knives, I modified the tip. I modified from tip to the curvature of the blade, and that's all I'm going to go into for now on that. I might hold back on some of that knife lingo and techniques, because that seems to be a hot question, and I know it would be, and the knife is so very important in the woods. You might have to come to survival class to get the really close inside scoop on my knife techniques. Elijah Bosch, if I pronounced that right. How hard is it to put pants on with balls that big? Oh, wow. Must be just after you watch me stab that muskox. Well, sometimes I do struggle getting into my pants or my trousers. And at the same time, if I'm really feeling big that day, my hats don't fit that good. You know, my head swells up. Diana Todd. What kind of dog do you have? And who took care of your dog while you were competing? Well, I am a dog guy. I run sled dogs a little bit here on the Kuskokwim, southwest interior Alaska, and I had some really good ones throughout the years. I call them Kuskokwim Husky. They are husky breed, and this dog pool out here on the Kuskokwim's pretty small. There ain't a whole lot of dogs being flown in for breeding because we're so remote. So generally your dog picked up out here in a village is blood strains up and down this particular river. Kuskokwim Husky is what I handled, and I got a trusted associate here in Red Devil that takes care of my dogs and a lot of my other business when I am out roaming around, which is quite often. So here we got Barry Wells. What type of plant food are you gathering? Berries or what? My main plant food was berries. In the fall, there's in the north, there's lots of berries. The north is known for heavy berry crops, and I I concentrated my gathering on berry, absolutely. And you know, I picked some root, I picked some other things that I really don't want to disclose all my stuff, you know. I'm not just going out there with everything. But berries were very important, Mr. Wells. Here we got Gerrie. I don't know if that's Gary or Jerry. Bugart. How nervous were you having to go in that close to that muskox with that tiny little knife? I don't know if nervous is the word. Definitely heightened sense of risk there, absolutely. And you know, I was pumped up for sure. Maybe a little nervous, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that was the word to use, but definitely was on red alert going into that. I mean, I was pumped. But I do have a couple spears and a stab to my history already. You know, I have dispatched animals by hand, large game, and that helped. But it was an intense moment by all means. Nervousness, a little bit afraid, a little bit of like, go do this, you know, all of it, just all of it. Very hard to describe what's going through your head at that point. Whitney Trondle. How did you prepare the roots and plants that you stored? And how long did they last after you harvested them? Well, it was cold out, and I froze. Damn near everything froze, and once it's frozen, it'll last until it thaws out. So, you know, that's one benefit of northern exposure. Your shit freezes and keeps good. Joe Johnston. Was that an old muskox? He seemed to be pretty subdued even when you hit him with an arrow. Well, I figure that was an old muskox. That was a lone bull on toward the end of his life cycle. Without a doubt, he was an old bull and separated from the herd. He was a lone old bull, and he was where I needed him, but far from, you know, he seemed pretty subdued, is your comment here. I don't know how that came across or how you saw that, but you can tell when I stabbed him and he'd come up out of his bed and turned right toward me. He was far from subdued, absolutely. Any wild animal does not know their limits. You know, they don't know they're whipped. That they're just a wild creature with some kind of brain. We don't, you know, nobody will really ever know how an animal sees things or rationalizes, but they do hang with life until they're dead. I mean, an animal will fight you with everything it has right up until it has nothing left. So that muskox was far from subdued. Whitney, or not Whitney, that was Joe Johnston. Yeah, Joe, that animal was far from subdued. Neil Tyrell, do you think being relatively at home, climate and terrain wise, was an advantage compared to contestants from much further south? Well, I mean, that's a no-brainer, my man. Great question, but yes, I've lived and camped and existed in the far north long time. I spent whole winters in wall tents. Hell yeah, it was an advantage. Debbie Olson. How does muskox taste with nothing to season it with? It's very dull. It's like eating it. I wouldn't say it was like eating moss. Moss is definitely absolutely bland, but yeah, it was very dull and unappetizing, to be sure. Clarissa Turner, did you take the muskox to be tanned after the show was over, and how did you dry it out with that kind of weather and in such an enclosed space? Yeah, drying that hide was a pretty big project. I even wrote down here, drying that hide was a bitch in such close quarters. But I did get it dried in Rock House, and hope to rest my head on that skin the rest of my days. Leah Fought. If I pronounced that right. Do you get enough sleep? Generally just enough, but not over much. I put in some pretty long days, but when I did sleep, I slept fine. That is an advantage I have in my physical composition. When I bed down, I can generally drift off and get some rest. Could have used some more, absolutely. Could have used a little more sleep. Jen Shaw. Hey, sister. I love and miss you too, sweetheart. I'll see you when I get home. My Pennsylvania home. Actually, I kind of consider North America home. I've been traveling extensively. I started traveling for work and hunts and what have you from 17 years old. I graduated at 17 and flew the coop, but I always go touch base with Pennsylvania. Linda Lovens, what is your ancestry? More specifically, were you raised living off the land? My family is from central Pennsylvania. We've grown up, we've always been farming, so to speak, homesteading, hillbilly kind of farming. It would not be industrial farming like people out in the Great Plains or something would consider farming. But, always homesteadish kind of farming, and mainly we're loggers and miners. White, Caucasian, German, English descent, central Pennsylvania, Appalachia Hill, loggers and miners, Appalachian Mountain, loggers and miners. I lean toward the logging a little more, and but my dad is a small-time strip miner in Pennsylvania back when you could sell a ton of coal. The coal mining industry is so important to Eastern culture in the Appalachians, and it is definitely under attack under the environmental mentality we have these days. But coal is a valuable thing. Coal is a hot fire, and to live like we do in America, you need a hot fire. Solar and wind power ain't gonna do it right now. Everything's switching to gas, which is pretty clean, and that is a natural resource, and I have no problem with gas. But there will always be a place for coal, and coal is key in steel production, which is key in all manufacturing. Don't ever write coal off. Coal is a powerful resource. We're coal miners and hardwood loggers in central Pennsylvania. Damn proud of it. and that ties us very close with the land. So my family has been living off the land in those regards, in an industrial sense, since we hit this continent, absolutely. And personally, and many other people in my family, we plan on going that way throughout America's future and whatever administration we're dealing with. Mitzi Cockrell, if I have that right, Mitzi Ward Cockrell. At what age did you develop a love for the outdoors? When did you build your first shelter? That's going way back. I know by 8 years old, absolutely, I was all in for a extreme outdoor lifestyle, because I know I set my first trap, given to me by my Uncle Jim, my dad's brother, and he gave me a dozen traps the first year I wanted to, or maybe 10 traps the first year I wanted to try to catch a coon and a possum. At 8, I mean, that's a really young age. I can remember getting up in the dark before school in the morning and walking a little trap line down Dale Run. So 8 years old, I was definitely in. Could have been a little earlier than that. Was leaning that way before that, probably. And at that same year, I can remember at that same age, because we had moved from the farm to a valley down in the woods into a log cabin, and I can remember building my dad was building a log home at the time, and I, as a young boy, I would go off in the woods and make a stick and rotten log kind of log cabin thing of my own. So I made my first shelter at 8, and I set my first trap at 8 years old. So here we got Pamela Levengood. Did he get his wool jacket in Ecuador? I guarantee you I did not get that in Ecuador. Here's Leonardus Figueroa, and I know I got that wrong. That could be Latin or Italian. What's next for you, so we can follow up with your lifestyle? Well, when you submitted this, it was probably, mid show, and it would have still been summer. Right now I'm in the fall, early fall, and my fall hunts were what's next for me, and that's what I'm involved with right now. And I just knocked off 2 hunts, got my sheep hunts done for the year, and next is moose and then grizzly bear. After that, I go down into the lower 48 and start chasing some deer. I'll hunt from August till late January. My fall hunts, that's what's next. Kelsey Howery. At this point in your life, what would you say is the most crucial bushcraft skill you have? Well, that's a tough question, Kelsey. Very tough. Because they're all so very important. But when it's 40 below, staying warm is your most crucial bushcraft skill. Amy Kyler, how did you like all the cameras? Well, Amy, glad to hear from you. I didn't like all the cameras, and I still don't, but they are a necessary evil to this whole thing. I mean, The camera itself don't bother me, but it's the time and the effort that it takes to pull off the camera work. It's like it's always in your hand. You know, everything you do for your daily living, you or anybody. You know, now imagine doing that one-handed because you got a camera in your hand all the time that you're nursing while you do everything you do. The camera work. And while we are all getting ready for this endeavor, we're being taught some camera stuff, and we all understand that the camera is going to be a big deal when we get out there. But until you actually land on your site and you have to record everything you do every day, all day long, then the amount of effort that goes into the camera starts coming home. Not until then. You can't get it till you do it. Kristen Cole, for the first 30 days or so, was there any footage you got that you was really hoping they'd use that they didn't? And what was it? Well, I mean, there was so much, not just the first 30 days, but throughout the whole thing. There's so much. Well, we're running them cameras all the time, and you capture a lot of garbage, of course, and then you capture a lot of good, not as much as the garbage. There's a lot of just B-roll and stuff, but yeah, absolutely, there's stuff that didn't get used, and to put my finger on any one that I really wanted used over another, I don't know if I can do that. It was put together very nicely. The people that we put the show together out of the raw footage do a very good job. This is a very well produced show. But we ain't all gonna get everything in there. Can't happen. Lillian Townsend, were you ever concerned that you would come back to Rock House and find a bear in it? Yes. Every time you leave your shelter in the wilderness, even here in Alaska, when I leave a camp and go hunting all day or firewood cutting or whatever I'm doing, the bears are always there's always potential of your camp getting hit by a bear. And I've had it happen. I didn't have it happen on alone, thank God, but I've had it happen in my lifestyle. And it just sucks when you come back in for the day and you look to where your camp should be and you can't see your tent, and you know it's down and the bear has wrecked it. Yeah, every day you leave your camp, you're worried it'll get hit. Dean Kisek, did you have a plan on how to approach the muskox and kill it with a knife? Or did you just say, F it, I got balls the size of grapefruits? Yes and yes. I do pretty extreme things and thought I'm just gonna make this happen. Absolutely. But did I have a plan? Yes, I absolutely had a plan. I sat there for a while and had a way I was gonna do that. Yes and yes. Alex Henninger. I'm an aspiring writer and survival instructor in training. Any advice for someone who wants to be on your level in 15 to 20 years? You would have to you got to move off the grid into some remote country that keeps you off the grid, like to move off the grid in anything east of the Mississippi's It's just too easy to drive to Walmart or wherever. You got to get off the grid. You got to isolate yourself from travel and communication somewhat, and make your living hunting and fishing and trapping and living off the land. Make your sole living that way for at least 10 years to get on my level. That's sound advice. That's the only way you'll get here. You have to do it. You have to experience it. You have to put yourself in that position. Because it don't matter how much training and classes and all that, which is all very important. I've read books and you know, I'm not saying education is not important, but then you have to take that and apply it to a real situation and develop your style. What happened? Oh, here we go. Neil Tyrell, what happened with your second arrow in the muskox hunt? My second arrow got broken. I had a broken arrow. Chrissy's chin or shin. How did the muskox taste? It was very bland, very tough. It was far from delectable. Robert Blackiston. What's your belt knife you're carrying when taking down that muskox? Again, I think that goes clear back to, you know, we're getting a lot of knife questions. I like a long handle where I can get a good grip. The blade can be slightly shorter than the handle. Straight back. I put my own tip on them, and I like it ground from the top to the bottom evenly. I don't particularly prefer hollow ground, and I don't particularly prefer drop points. Ben Harriet, what are you going to spend the $1 million on? I really don't know. I'm gearing up for a new expedition for sure. I'm going to go do something really cool with a slice of that money, which is kind of what I've been doing my whole life on every time I score a few bucks, but I don't know. That's more money than I can even get my head around. Mike Denton, how much fireweed did you eat? I probably ate half of what I gathered, and once I got the muskox, you know, I slacked off on eating root. Of course, the roots are not exactly what you would call palatable. They're just palatable. You can get them down if you prepare them right. But they are a bulk food source, and I utilized them. I probably ate half a bushel of fireweed root. Barry Shirey, when are you coming back to Pennsylvania? I'd like to catch up with you. It's hard to say, Bear. Sometime here this winter, I'll make a pass through. I don't know, buddy. Maybe we'll catch you at Cardinals. Jenica Christensen, what did you learn about yourself during this alone time that you didn't know before? And I probably spent more time thinking about this question than any of them. And I don't really got a good answer for that. I know myself pretty well. I've spent a lot of time alone previous to this show. Granted, on the show, we were unsupported with no food and everything, and you're scrambling for grub all the time. But I mean, prior to that, which makes it extremely hard living off the land exclusively, But prior to that, I've spent 2 and 3 months alone before, and I know myself awfully well. I don't know if I learned anything about myself or not. I confirmed a shitload of stuff. Lance Ball. Hey Roland, what was your favorite moment from the experience that did not make it to the air? And again, there was so much footage from all of us, not just me, that did not get used. There was 10 excellent people just filming themselves all the time. So, I mean, they couldn't use all that. But I did some pretty cool snaring stuff. And it didn't quite make it, but it's no biggie. It's no biggie. I'm very satisfied with the way the whole show turned out. Nathan Deacon. Did you look for other fishing spots besides Danger Rock? Yes, Nathan, I did. I experimented with 2 or 3 other places before reverting back to Danger Rock again, and I wasn't catching fish in them other spots, and I know I catch them at Danger Rock, and so therefore I quit looking around, and that was the only place I really could catch fish consistently, right off the edge of that. And the camera don't even show how steep that was at all. Like, it's hard to capture the reality. And when them waves are coming up and I'm down there trying to get my net in, it was way more dramatic than could be shown. It was kind of a bitch. It was a bitch fishing at Danger Rock, but I would catch fish there, so I did try some other spots. They were no good. Jeff LeBlanc. Did you win? Yeah, Jeff, I smashed it. MJ Gibbons. When is the book coming out? Well, and then on down here, Amy kicked in my book. I do have a book, and prior to this, but we're likely going to add an alone chapter to that book. Julie Pickering, how did you cure so much meat without losing some to mold and what have you? Well, meat handling is an ongoing process. There's too much detail to even go into and all that. But we did kill that muskox kind of late in the fall, and it was getting cold, which helped immensely. But I am capable of preserving meat in warm weather too, only it takes a lot of effort. Steve Peters. Do you know we call you Captain Woodsy? No, Steve, I didn't know that. Kevin Milner. And why do you say we instead of I? I do that a lot. I've even caught myself doing it just now. To me, we, and then Randy Kelly said, yeah, he noticed that too, and he kind of liked it because it was like including the viewer, and that kind of is how I see it. We as a group of people watching this and doing this, and also in this particular instance, we included my mother, absolutely. And at the end, you'll see me figure out that maybe that's what we meant, but I absolutely do say we instead of I. And it could be me and the camera, could be me and you, me and my mother, me and whoever's on my mind at the time. Just because I'm alone doesn't mean I ain't thinking about everyone and other individuals in particular. My brain's pretty big. There's always somebody in it. That could be we. P.E. Koger. If you had a do-over, is there a tool you would swap out for a 2-bean ration? Looking back at it from now, man, I needed every tool I had, so I would say no. But if at like day 50 or 60 you was standing there with a 2-bean ration wanting to trade for one of my tools, I might have did that. 2 pounds of beans that have tasted awfully good at day 50. Good question. Door Stover, what's on your bucket list to do after this? Well, right after this, I took a big long motorcycle trip in the winter through the western states, solo, unsupported, 3,000 miles, and I don't know if that was on my bucket list, but that's what I did right after the show, and it was very, very, very cool. Don Hodges, your shelter looked cozy and warm. Was it as warm as it looks? It was. Rock House was very tight and very warm and very cozy. Janet Tennyson, follow up to the last question about how warm can a stone shelter get with the fire going. Well, that depends on the outside temperature, but with the fire inside, it'll get nice. Once your fire goes out, it gets cold. It's like living in a tent. You can make it warm, or it'll be cold. But at 0 degrees, if it was 0 outside, it would be above, with a nice fire going and me in there feeding it, Rock House would be above freezing. Wendy Mirvold, same question, sorta. Rock House is awesome, but there has been some debate online as to whether the rocks would help or hinder staying warm inside the shelter. Well, a rock is just a rock. A rock will transmit or hold heat as easily as it will cold. So you gotta be in there firing Rock House for it to be warm. When it's cold, it's cold. A rock will distribute heat or cold evenly. Carol Davis, can you show more of your cache rock root cellar for storing food? And no, I can't on that, Carol. And it wasn't covered real good, but it was real hard to film that, because Rock House, the wall was already rock, and then the big ones I used to form the root cellar kind of cache thing I did were just looked like more rocks of the wall. Plus it's dark inside a Rock House. It was kind of hard to film inside a Rock House. That was the one drawback of Rock House, is it was really dark inside. Some of the other participants that had, I don't know what you want to call, other kind of shelters, left a lot more light in. Filming was way easier. Real dark in Rock House. Thomas Komsky, how are you spending the money? With a smile. I'm pretty happy. Angel Lunsford, what's your biggest takeaway thing you learned about yourself from your time alone? That almost goes back to that other question. I don't know if I picked up anything new, but I did confirm to myself that yes, I like being alone. My life is better with less people in it. I don't need a lot of people in my face. The less, the better. Betty Welker. When can you come to Alaska? When can I come to Alaska to visit? It's on my bucket list. Well, you can come to Alaska anytime, Betty. And when you get to Anchorage, let me know and I'll come in. You can buy me a beer. Michelle Kendall. What does Roland think about the show doing a season on Kaho'olawe? And I probably got that wrong. An abandoned, brutal island in Hawaii. Well, it ain't cold enough there for Alone to have that in its sights. Alone is a cold weather show. They're cold weather people. That's what makes it unique. It's cold. But personally, I'm game for anything. I'll take any challenge out there. I'm confident in myself to handle any situation. Yeah, bomb me in there. I'll beat you there too. Elizabeth Marcello, how warm did your shelter get? Did having it made from stone actually keep it warmer? That's like some of them other questions. Rock house was warm when I had a fire in it, and cold without a fire. Stone transmits cold and heat the same either way, you know. Now when it's 40 below outside, you really gotta have that fire humping inside to beat that 40 below back. You know, as you saw in whatever episode it was, that cold air coming in the door and going down along them rocks right at the end, you know, they were frosted over like your refrigerator, freezer. There's nothing warm at 40 below, not even Rock House. That's some serious cold. Susan Snyder, what do you miss most about home? Depending on whatever home is. I more or less call North America home. I live all over the continent. But what I miss most about being in there, removed from society and whatever, even though I do that a lot in my remote trips, I always have books. I'm an avid reader. And while I was at Rock House, nothing to read, nothing to write with, you know, nothing like that. You just didn't have it. If you was going to keep a journal, you'd have to do it on birch bark with charcoal, and I think some people have done that in the past, or maybe even this season, and that's a real cool thing, but I just couldn't find the time to do that. And reading was, I missed my books. I'm an avid reader. Ryan Hunter, it looks like you take 2 arrows with you when you go out. Yes, I do. Did you miss with the second arrow? How many times did you actually stab that muskox? Yeah, I do take 2 arrows. The second one got broken. I had a broken arrow. That's it. That's it. I mean, I'm sure there's more. Everybody, I'll do it again. Feed them to the website, and then I'll get to them somehow. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next go round.